Welcome to the Conduit Deeper podcast, a podcast that takes a deep dive into the details that surround our current sermon series, from current events to fascinating finds to conversations that take us deeper into the Word. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome to the Deeper Podcast. My name is Mo, Executive Pastor at Conduit Church, joined with our lead pastor, Darren Tyler. And we're going to dive in and maybe jump down some rabbit holes because everybody else is.
Yeah.
And so, and that could be, man, if you just turned in, you're wondering, what rabbit hole are they going to jump into?
Yeah. There's a lot to choose from right
There's
now.
so many to choose from. But this specific one, we kind of want to hit head on, and that is anything and everything surrounding Israel right now.
Yeah.
Now, there hasn't been necessarily any news regarding an attack on Israel, which is, I think, the last time we covered Israel is there were missiles flying around.
Right.
In this case, it's more of a misinformation attack that seems to have a groundswell that we feel like we need to address and discuss.
Yeah. And I will say this, we're not going to get to everything today. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to be interviewing Michael Easley, talking about some theological stuff, Dr. Jeff Myers talking about some of the theological stuff, and I'm going to cover 2 Sundays on it. And so my hope is that we at least answer or send you in the right direction for where you want to do your own research to find the answers as it relates to Israel, what's going on right now, and realizing that, I've been a little salty recently, and I hope that you don't take that as me being defensive. It's really that I'm angry because they attacked my friends, and I say they meaning Hamas. And so, if I'm angry, that's what I'm angry about. So, and I want to actually define a couple terms before we go into it. One is as I want to separate the theology, right, of Israel, the land, Zionism. We're not going to cover that today. We're probably not even going to get to cover how Israel got to the land. Maybe we will. So there's a lot of blowing around. It was just there's a giant thing of the Rothschilds and the Balfour Declaration, 1917. But I will just plant this seed that even if any of that is accurate, God all the time throughout the Bible, like when you don't know what's true, you go to what is true, right? You don't know what's true, we go to what we know is true, which is the Word of God. God uses wild leaders all the time to accomplish His purposes, and we all said that, right, with Trump, right? Like, so I would like to say that I don't know. I just know that a people that had never been a people before, right, that had disappeared off the face of the earth for 2,000 years, lost their land, lost everything, came back, and in a day were declared a nation. That's literally never happened in history to any people group anywhere. But we'll talk about that at some point. But today, I guess what I really wanted to get into is the actual problem on the ground in the Middle East is actually a problem that we're experiencing here in the United States, which is Islam.
Yeah.
I think what I've been so frustrated with is there's plenty of time to debate whether Netanyahu is leading well. By the way, the Israelis they're asking that same question. All of my Israeli friends, but they're all doing what we should be doing, what I hope we can do, which is say, we'll get to that. Right now, we've got this, terrorist organization in front of us. I do want to add this, though, because one of the conspiracies that I've heard is that he has been, that he was planning this out with Hamas ahead of time, that he was in on it. And
the October 7th attack.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, October 7th, which is 2 years ago, like next week.
Yeah.
And the only thing I would say to that when you're doing your research is, research who Hamas is, and then ask yourself, would they actually even talk to a Jewish person, let alone plan something with them?
Yeah, the conspiracy is that Bibi ordered a stand down for that attack.
Correct.
Of the
Right.
IDF.
And you trust me, mark my words, he will not win re-election there. the Israelis are just as mad because whether it was, a conspiracy or incompetence, the results were still the same, which is innocent people were murdered, raped, tortured, kidnapped.
Yes. 50
of which are still in captivity. We don't know if they're alive or dead, but in captivity right now. But going back to, and maybe it's because I've had so much experience in Islamic countries that it's just blatantly obvious that they wouldn't plan something with him because they wouldn't even talk to him.
Yeah. I did a quick deep dive. Is that possible?
From the high board.
Yeah, from the top rope. The top 10 cities with the highest Muslim population in number of mosques in the U.S.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's start in the United States.
You're curious to know if you can name any of these top 10? Probably can.
Well, I mean, Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit actually.
That's a gimme.
Detroit's number 5.
Wait, that's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, most of it correlates with population, so it's kind of not surprising.
Are they blue cities?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
All of them. All of them. So, number 1 city with the highest Muslim population and the number of mosques, New York City.
Yeah.
Okay, so that to me is pretty obvious.
Yeah. Especially they're about to elect a Muslim.
Yes.
As mayor.
Correct, which that's why he will get That's why he will get elected.
Right.
Over 300 mosques can be found in New York City, New York. Close to 1 million would say that they are Muslim in New York City.
Right. And so, yeah, to that end, September 25th, Dearborn, Michigan, estimates between 37 and 45,000 Muslims. And again, do your research, look at the videos, and see if you're okay with that in American cities. And golly, should we talk about it? So in Dearborn, it's actually a predominantly Shia Muslim population. So they were celebrating a Shiite holiday. And
yes.
Yeah, I guess I better
say 22nd annual Arbeen procession.
Yeah.
The Shiite Muslim commemoration.
Right.
Held in August, it says, Dearborn, Michigan.
And so what I wanted to get at, I guess, let's talk about it. Muslim, just like Christianity, isn't like a unifunnel. There's lots of different, even inside of Shia and Sunni. But the Shia and the Sunni, they don't like each other either. Like Iran, Syria, Lebanon. There's literally Iraq is like the Shia wall of Shia Islam. They're the ones that believe in their eschatology that they can. The Mahdi will return if they can with bloodshed. Like that when the president of Iran stood in the UN 15 years ago and wanted to expedite the return of the Mahdi. That's what he's talking about. The 12th Imam. Like it's their version of Jesus coming back.
And that's the Shiite.
That's the Shiite
side.
Right.
Sunni side.
Sunni. So that's, by the way, Shia would be like 10%, fact check me, 10% of the world's population would be Shia. 90% are Sunni.
Okay.
And Sunni, by the way, so Shia, Iran, Sunni would be ISIS, Osama, and nation-wise like Qatar. So that's why when you see like Saudi Arabia, Sunni, battling with Houthis who are Shia, funded by Iran, Shia, there's literally like a civil war going on inside of Islam as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting point I want to get to here in a second. The cities, New York City.
Sorry.
No, you're good. No, we'll
you just scratched me that's my inner nerd.
We'll go full circle. New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago also correlate with the 3 most populated cities in the U.S. Houston, Texas, number 4, also number 4 most populated city in the U.S. Detroit and Dearborn.
Gotcha.
Specifically, Hamtramck, Michigan. Dearborn, Hamtramck. That's like that whole area right there. Over 120 mosques in Dearborn.
Wow.
It's a lot. Washington, D.C. is right after that.
I actually would have guessed that number 1, but
yeah, it was a little surprising to me. Then Philadelphia, Boston, Atlanta, number 9, which I did find surprising.
Yeah, actually, it is surprising.
And San Francisco rounds out the top 10. Also, kind of, talking about Shia and Sunni, is this city in outside of Dallas, 40 miles north.
Is it Plano, Texas?
East of Dallas, Josephine, Texas.
Okay.
But yeah, technically Plano. It's called Epic City, which stands for the East Plano Islamic Center. So it's funny, we talk about in America we have mega churches. Well, so does Islam.
Mega mosques.
They have mega mosques. There's a mega mosque.
Yeah, the Al-Aqsa Mosque being the number one
in Plano, Texas. It's a 402-acre residential community. So it's not just a mosque, but there's a community center. Athletic fields, courts, homes, houses, over 1,000 houses. This is all being built right now. They are Sunni. I went and downloaded and read their bylaws. I was curious, like, what's in their organizational, bylaws? Like, what do they want? What do they believe? And they specifically state they're Sunni Muslims.
Yeah.
So you have, let's say, Dallas is Sunni Muslims, and you got Detroit Shia. How does that work?
Well, it works because notice they're not side by side.
Correct. How would this play out? Let's say in couple hundred years, if things were to continue to go, like, would there be would they have their own civil war between themselves at some point?
In America or in general?
In general, or here in America?
Almost anywhere you find Sunni and Shia side by side, they're at war with each other.
Yeah. It's good to know.
They definitely, it's not a small distinction, and it's not like Catholics versus Protestants, right? In the this is like the terrorist organizations. Now, one thing they do agree on is that they hate Jews, hate them. And Hamas, by the way, is a Sunni organization founded by the Muslim Brotherhood, or by a guy from the Muslim Brotherhood, but that is a Sunni organization that was based in Egypt that has at least begun to fund. And that's why, by the way, when they talk about the borders of Gaza being closed, no one ever mentions that the Egyptian border is closed too. They don't want them either. Because the Muslim Brotherhood, it's not a Palestinian, whatever. It's just literally, they want the same thing that Israel wants, is they don't want to get bombed. And I'm old enough to remember in the 80s and 90s, 70s, when on a daily basis it felt like bombs were exploding in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, from Palestinian terrorists. So
this Epic Center, the East Plano Islamic Center in Dallas, they approves their website, which needs some work from a design standpoint.
Probably got done on Fiverr.
That's neither here nor there. But they're offering Sunday school. They do have something called Sunday school. This is bizarre to me. Yeah. Sunday school, 5 to 17 years old, through the school year, every Sunday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
By the way, you will not find the word Sunday school in any mosque anywhere in the world.
It's a rebrand.
100% rebrand.
Texas, Sunday school. You can go to an Islamic Sunday school for your child. These are the things they're going to teach about the Quran, Islamic studies, hands-on activities, life skills for teens, learning how to change tires, finances, cooking lessons. But wrapped into that, also their mission is to help students develop strong, positive Islamic identities.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, all the things that you would expect.
Yeah. And when, as a Christian, let me rephrase that, as an American, right, we were founded on some ideas that we all used to agree on, which was Judeo-Christian values. Judeo, by the way, Jewish, Judeo-Christian values. Our values of human rights, things that we just take for granted, all life is equal, those are not Roman ideas. Those are Judeo-Christian. Now, if you want to sidebar on it, the book Dominion by Tom Holland literally builds an exhaustive case from an agnostic, that everything we consider that we just thought we made up actually came from Judeo-Christian values. But now reverse engineer that and, well, go to Minneapolis. By the way, I'm surprised that's not on the list, but
yeah, I know.
Most of those, a lot of the Muslim population in Minneapolis is actually Somali.
Yes.
And there was a big brouhaha a while back, even like where if you flew in from a country and you had your bottle of whatever, rum or whatever, the taxi drivers would refuse to pick you up because their values were no alcohol. by the way, in most of those countries, one of the ways kids make side hustle money is, I can't drink, so I'll pay a teenage neighbor to go buy my booze for me because we can't be seen in the liquor store. Like a Baptist, you just sneak to the liquor store, but the Muslims actually pay somebody to go for them. But that's an Islamic value, and if you were coming into it may still be that way. But these, again, those are Sunni, those are Somali. But from is born Ilhan Omar, who is bananas, right, as a congresswoman, and what we are facing here is literally what Israel will be facing and coming for them, by the way, at some point, because there are a lot of Arabs that live in Israel. And by the way, I know many of them, they want to live in Israel. They don't want to live in the Palestinian controlled areas. And when you get, at some point, Israel's going to face this as well. We're going to face this, which is they're out, I say this is about to sound racist, but it's just true. They're outbreeding us as a people. As a religion, they're outbreeding us. I mean, the statistics are incontrovertible as far as the lack of childcare. Elon Musk talks so much about population collapse, the amount of young people that are not having babies right now. Meanwhile, Muslims, they're,
Isn't that not a strategy, though? Isn't that part of their larger strategy?
I would be careful to say strategy, but it's their value.
Okay.
And it turns out to be very convenient. For them, because then how are you going to vote? You're going to vote according to Islamic values, not according to Christian values. And that video that you played from one of the guys, was he a part of the development group from that?
Yeah. So if you go on their website, you can find their YouTube channel, and on their YouTube channel, they've got a very up-to-date discussion of their core values, and it's kind of a back and forth with a guest speaker, Sami Hamdi. Apparently, he's very popular in this community, and he kind of lays out why they are so focused on spreading Islam within America.
Yeah.
So it took me probably 10 minutes on their website through clicking different links, viewing different videos from it to go from super friendly, warm, welcoming. They use language like, inclusivity,
which is hilarious, by the way.
Welcoming other religions to be a part, other fellow Americans. Literally within 10 minutes of clicking and landing on some of their videos, you could feel and see pretty quickly the direction that they want to go.
Yeah.
And it's not only aggressive, but I mean, very strong language towards Israel, rather against Israel.
Yeah.
Wrapped in American ideology. It's a bit of a hijacking.
Yeah. It is trying to have,
for lack of a better word,
the principles, right, of America without having the principle giver of America, because the Quran, it does not, you cannot read the Quran and think all lives matter, right? There's a reason why slavery is thriving in Muslim countries, because there's no command against it. Like, it's genuinely part of the culture.
Well, yes, and even more so, this particular speaker, as they're kind of going back and forth in like a town hall, is kind of thanking, siding with, appreciative of the conversations coming from Candace Owens, coming from Tucker Carlson, coming from Marjorie Greene Taylor.
Yeah.
On how those individuals are questioning, pushing back against all things Israel.
Right.
So now
this is why this is so dangerous.
They're aligned with Sunni Islam. One of the largest mosques in the country is now aligned with ideologically with some of the biggest names on the quote unquote right.
And it's like such an unforced error. Like, if Tucker, who's obviously done a lot of good, right? If he would at least offer the counter view, or at least equally condemn, he's got hours of programming. And to my knowledge, I've recently anyway, have not heard him ever address the Islamic problem in America or in the Middle East. And I guess that's what I really wanted to get across today. The rabbit hole, you don't even have to go very deep. Like, it's genuinely right in front of us. And to me, what's happening right now is a huge distraction from what we need to do. Like, I would love the war to wrap up too. You hear Megyn Kelly, say, let's wrap it up. And I would love that too. But if the only thing you are doing is condemning Israel, if the only thing you're doing is providing platforms for people to provide just that one issue, you got to know that the Islamic fundamentalists are hijacking that for their own good. Because, by the way, the vast majority of the rest of the stuff Tucker Carlson would say they would have no agreement with at all. Yeah. But you become, I don't know if this is the phrase, you become the useful idiot of Islamic radicals with it. And the reason we're bringing it up in America is when you go to Israel, you see that is 100% the problem. It is a theopolitical situation. Two theologies. That's a coined phrase by Dr. Jeff Myers. Shout out Jeff Myers. That was what I was so mad I didn't think of that. Because I would use phrasing like religious war, which makes it very uncomfortable, especially for Jewish people as well. But it is a theopolitical issue.
Not to be confused with Theo Von.
No, buddy. Not to be convinced with a useful idiot.
Posting Free Palestine this week on his Twitter, on his X account, out of nowhere, seemingly out of nowhere, with a Palestinian flag. I honestly did not see that coming from him.
I did, only because, and again, do your research. When you look at how much money Muslim organizations and state governments, like Qatar being the most prominent, have been investing in our country, billions of dollars. I think the number for just American universities from Qatar is $6.5 billion. Why on earth would they want to invest in our universities? And the answer is the narrative, right?
Yeah.
And maybe I should say this. I do theologically believe that the Jewish people are where they're supposed to be. But even if you removed that and see that there was a people group they were being murdered, in World War II. I mean, the Jews have been universally hated, by the way, for thousands of years. They're the most persecuted group of people in history. But even if you don't believe that they are theologically supposed to be there, there's a lot of talk. We're going to talk about this next week or at some point with Michael Easley. What the synagogue of Satan. I've heard that phrase a lot. There's a little bit of an irony in that, because on the one hand, they're saying Israel shouldn't exist at all. And on the other hand, they're saying, well, they do exist, but they're just a synagogue of Satan. But all that aside, what I'm getting at is that there is a group of people, 8 million people in a country the size of New Jersey, surrounded by tens of millions of people that want them dead. The Hamas charter, when they founded their organization in 2007, when they took over Gaza Strip, literally in their charter, they make no bones what we want. We want Israel. We want all the Jews gone. Which is why, by the way, the attacks on October 7th were called the Al-Aqsa Brigade, because the Al-Aqsa Mosque is the mosque that's on the Temple Mount in the middle of Jerusalem. And the Jews are not allowed to go on the Temple Mount. By the way, this inclusive people, if you're a Jewish person, you're not allowed to go on the property of the Al-Aqsa Mosque to pray, to do it. You can pray on the little wall down there. When we're walking around there on tours, you're not allowed to hold hands with your wife. Some guy will come just yell at you. Our guide loves to pray, but she's not allowed to. Literally, if they caught her praying, her license would be revoked. By the way, it would be revoked by Israel, because Israel doesn't want to poke that dragon either.
Yeah.
But at the core of this is a theopolitical issue. And so when the Tucker Carlsons of the world are talking only about Israel, not only does it reinforce anti-Semitism in Europe and in America, but it's enforcing it with people who he would not consider our friends. they're using it to build a Muslim neighborhood.
Yeah.
In Plano, Texas, which is, and when I say they, I that's where it feels racist, but they meaning the Islamic faith. This is an Islamic guided principle, is that the world will be better when Islam dominates the world. That's straight from Muhammad. And the deeper, I love this, my guy in North Africa, who actually came to Christ because he said this to me once: the only way out of Islam is deeper into Islam. And what he meant was, the deeper I got into Islam, I realized that I either had to be a terrorist or I wasn't a good Muslim. Because that's literally it, right? That when you get into the Quran, and it's not even Muslims aren't the problem. Islam is the problem. It's the principles they live by.
Well, Netanyahu came to the States this week, Monday, I believe it was.
Yep.
Sat down with Trump and the team, unveiled a 20-point plan to end the Gaza war, release hostages, et cetera, et cetera.
By the way, released 20 hostages. Not all the hostages.
So
did that change?
Ceasefire and exchange, immediate halt to fighting. Hamas releases part of. This is the deal that was proposed.
Yeah.
Hamas to release 48 hostages,
Okay.
20 of which are alive. So I don't know how that works.
Well, actually, that might be. You think it might be an update that there are 28 bodies sitting over there.
Okay. 48.
48. Well, but if there's 20 that are alive, that would be.
Oh, I see. 20.
Yeah, you do the math, add
additional
them together.
The additional. Within 3 days.
Yeah, right. And so what does Hamas do? They've literally, this huge genocide that's happening supposedly, and they got to think about it.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to do a ceasefire, but we need a couple days to think about whether we want, you to quit.
And Israel is to free 250 life-sentenced prisoners and 1,700 Gazans.
Yeah.
This is what was all proposed. What was their response?
Well, Hamas is still thinking about it. Again, this should be if they really were good faith actors, they would come to the table. And by the way, one of the reasons that Netanyahu will not get reelected is if you're an Israeli person and you've got 200 terrorists in prison in exchange for 20 innocent people and 28 dead bodies that were murdered by them, that doesn't feel like a very good deal.
Yeah.
But do you see what I'm saying? Like that, if you're Hamas, this is such an, if you're a good faith actor, this is an obvious yes.
Yeah.
But they're not good faith actors, and thus they're
round and round we go.
And by the way, I don't see this happening for a couple of reasons. One, the demand is that Hamas lays down their arms. I can't imagine that's going to happen. And two is that they don't get what they say they want, which is a two-state solution. From the Palestinian Authority. So like Saudi Arabia, these other nations, I don't think will get behind it because it doesn't put a two-state solution on the table.
Yeah, I mean, the international support suggests that 8 Arab Muslim states, UAE, Qatar, would back the plan and fund reconstruction of Gaza. So you're saying that's just unrealistic at this point?
I can't imagine a circumstance under which, if actually you could just stop it laying down their arms.
Yeah.
Like the thing like with Megyn Kelly's of the world, and me, by the way, I just want this to end. Bibi has been, I say Bibi, Israel in general, has been kicking the can down the road for 20 years with Gaza. And at the end of the day, the problem is Hamas. 2007, do your research. When Hamas took over the Gaza Strip, by the way, they were elected by the Palestinian people. They took over in 2007. And research on this, there's a guy, I think his name was Rami, a Christian bookstore owner. Remember, this is, this Free People, whatever. The only Christian bookstore in the entire city of Gaza. And it was bombed, it was attacked after Hamas took over, and then he was murdered. In fact,
Wow.
ACLJ got his wife out of Gaza, negotiated with them and got her out because her life was in danger. But Hamas, the first thing they did, again, do your research, look at it. I've actually seen it with my own eyes. So it's hard to, I get frustrated because I'm like, people want to argue with me about what I've actually seen with my eyes.
Yeah.
And for the record, stupid to even say this out loud, I've never received a penny of money from Israel. Bibi doesn't even know who I am. Like it's so ridiculous that I almost didn't want to say it out loud, but just in case you're wondering, I don't even know a pastor that has gotten money from Israel. If they're out there, I don't know who they are. And I know Jack Hibbs, Rob McCoy, I know most of them. None of us have got. If I'm compromised, I suck at being compromised. I haven't got a single. It's not a single shekel.
Get this man some shekels.
Right. And if that's dismissive, I'm actually not sorry about that, because that is so patently ridiculous. That it makes me angry.
Yeah.
But I mean, you see where I live. I live in like an old dumpy house and an old drive by 20. Anyway, it's just ridiculous. But when Hamas took over, so follow along. I wish I had a whiteboard for this. The two-state solution that they're talking about right now. First of all, go back and do just the history of land for peace deals, starting with Jimmy Carter, Reagan, Bush, Clinton. Clinton actually, will talk about it to this day. He had Yasser Arafat at the table. And there's this really awkward picture, and I'm brain farting the name of the president of Israel at that time. They gave Arafat what he asked for at this, and he refused to sign it.
The Ariel Sharon?
No, Sharon wasn't. Well, maybe, no, it was right before Sharon, I think. So do your research, figure it out. They get to the table, and the thing he said he wanted, they gave it to him, and he walked away from it. Because he doesn't want a two-state solution. He wants a one-state solution. By the way, Arafat is dead, and now Mahmoud Abbas has been the president of the Palestinian Authority for 20 years, probably, 2005. So follow me on this. You've got the Palestinian Authority, the Palestinian people, which is what I wish, give me 20 minutes on a whiteboard with Theo Vaughn. The Palestinian Authority, when they say a two-state solution, where it stands right now, the Palestinians can't agree on a two-state solution, even among themselves. So after 2007, Mahmoud Abbas has never been back to Gaza again. The Palestinian people that he's supposedly the president of.
Where does he live?
He lives in Judea and Samaria. We know it as the West Bank, but the biblical name for it is Judea and Samaria. And so and the reason he can't go there is he will be murdered. So it's like Trump can't go to Texas because he'll be murdered. He's the president of Texas, technically.
Yeah.
So they can't even agree. And by the way, again, whiteboard it. Look at the map. Judea and Samaria, West Bank, and Gaza are two separate territories. They don't even touch each other, right? So you got to negotiate some kind of a solution with Hamas, and then some kind of a solution with Abbas, and they hate each other. So even inside of Islam, right? And by the way, they hated him because he's not radical enough. So when Hamas took over Gaza Strip, the first thing they did was start destroying anything that Israel had left behind. All of the farms, the water systems, infrastructure, anything that Israel had done, they destroyed. And with the billions of dollars that the U.S. and other countries have invested in Gaza, they could have literally built a paradise. When Trump, he kind of jokes about it, but it's actually true. But instead, what they did was built an entire war infrastructure of tunnels underground. They themselves became very wealthy. So when, was it last month when Israel hit a site inside of Qatar?
Yeah.
Those were Hamas leaders. So even the leaders of Hamas that are rich out of their minds don't live in Gaza. They're over there in Qatar.
Wow.
With the full protection of their Qatari government. And again, do your research. It's actually very public information. And I get it that look, we're the people that called BS on the COVID narrative, right? I get it that we've been lied to. And but what we learned from COVID, it's not that you can't find the truth. It's out there. You just have to do your work, and you have to be careful where you're getting your truth from. And there's plenty of rabbit holes to go down. I go down them. But it becomes a distraction in what, maybe we'll get to that, but right now the distraction is literally people, if Hamas were to succeed from the river to the sea, where do 8 million Jews go? Right? You talk about a crisis, and the answer is nobody knows. And if you go to Israel, you'll actually hear the same thing. They know what is wrong, but nobody knows what the solution is. And what Bibi has made a political calculation, right or wrong, is we're already in Gaza. We're going to finish this job. We're going to finish Hamas because they will not go away. For one of the things that he has been rightfully so accused of. And by the way, a lot of my friends on the Gaza envelope that lived on the Gaza border had the same idea, which is if we're just nice enough to the Gaza, then we will be friends with them. They'll see that we're good people, which is exactly what President Obama did when he started sending pallets full of cash into Iran. If we just be really nice, the Ayatollah will see that we can be friends, which is very much a secular humanist idea that we're all good people. So if we're just nice enough, they'll see. And that's what my friends on the Gaza envelope experience was. Gazans were coming in every day. You know, they say that it's an open prison. They literally, now, do they have to go through security? Yes, because they don't want bombs coming with them. And we understand that was not a dumb thing. They were literally Jewish people from the Gaza envelope that were going into Gaza, picking up people who needed healthcare, like volunteers, nonprofits, bringing them into Israel for healthcare. I've seen it with my own eyes. And what they were rewarded with was an attack on October 7th of thousands of not just Hamas terrorists, yes, but then thousands of Gazans came through those holes in the fence and looted the cities, taking TVs and motorcycles. And so and by the way, if it's frustrating, but if you're a Gazan child in kindergarten right now, their version of kindergarten, one of the first lessons you learn is that Jews are evils. They're monsters. They have songs about how evil the Jews are. You know, they draw pictures of monsters. So from the moment 2005, when they could have been building out with not only money from us, by the way, money from Israel as well, they could have built a paradise. And instead, they spent the last 20 years indoctrinating children all the way up to adults. So of course, that's how they're behaving now. That's what they were taught in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, all the way through school. The Jews are wicked. The Jews are evil. You know, there's phone call recordings of one of the terrorists on the phone with his dad. So it'd be like Ethan calling me from Hawaii. Dad, I killed a Jew. Get mom on the phone. And mom and dad are just celebrating with that he killed Jews. Like that's madness, but that's who Bibi is up against. That's who the Israeli government is up against. And when I say support Israel, I guess I didn't say this at the beginning. I don't mean the government. I mean the people of Israel. Anywhere we see oppression, abuse, whether it is slaves in Asia, whether it is Christians in South Sudan who have been displaced because of Islam, or whether it is Jewish people in the Gaza envelope that are being attacked by radical Islamic death cults, we're there for them. And if the roles were reversed, I hope they would be there for us. But that's the whole bless them, curse them. We could talk about the calculus of that and the theology of it. But this is just a Christ-honoring thing right now. And by the way, we'd love to help the people in Gaza, but we can't because Hamas won't let us in there. So it's literally not even an option. Someone had messaged me, I need to respond to her actually, about do I know anybody working in Nigeria where Boko Haram is killing Christians? And the answer is no, because Christians can't get in there to work there. Boko Haram will not let them in there. So coming back to where we are, inside of Israel, I would just ask for people to give it a minute. You know, we can ask those questions. You can talk about it. But when you're blasting it on social media, like with this thing even with Erica Kirk, that somehow she's compromised by Israel, and like she's seeing this stuff. Her parents, Charlie's parents, first of all, not true. And second of all, these are real people on the other side. So when you're saying you're just asking questions, you can ask them, but think about there's real humans, right? There are real Jewish people who already feel completely isolated from the world. They see this stuff. And by the way, it confirms a narrative that they have believed for hundreds of years, and in some ways, rightfully so, that Christians hate Jews, right? Martin Luther, one of his last books was The Jews and Their Lies, right? This anti-Semitic diatribe that Hitler based his entire fascist empire on, claiming it was a Christian doctrine. And if you're a Jewish person, you know, they're very hesitant of us, and understandably so.
That was a lot.
I'm sorry.
That was a lot. I think, Darren, I'm going to give you a chance to take a breath. I'm going to give all of us to take a breath. It's like, all right, to process all that.
Vape pen? I don't know. I don't vape, by the way.
No, you don't.
Got to be clear.
No,
I know, but I say something like that, someone's going to clip it. And,
yeah. No, I think for this conversation, I think we need to remember that there's a macro conversation and there's micro conversations.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, so
look at Mo coming in clutch with some clarity.
I think in the internet world and in the social media, podcasts, video clips, we want to talk about micro, we're talking like 30-second clips on TikTok, right? Or 35-second clips on Instagram, or short form videos. Like that's like the micro conversations of which all this information, misinformation, disinformation gets splintered, right?
Yeah.
And we just talked about how even those in the Muslim communities are splintered in their own beliefs. Obviously, there's how many denominations in Christianity.
Right.
And that's just religion, not to mention just ideological splintering that happens.
Right.
So that's like the micro, and we get so caught up in the micro conversations that it leads us to splinter all these ideas. But when we zoom out and we see the macro conversation, of which we should be looking through the lens of Scripture, we see that the promises of God protect and bless Israel.
Right, and I'm going to make a case for that on Sunday, and I recognize that there are theologians out there, including Douglas Wilson, that do not believe that those promises apply. Now, I think it's as simple as the Scripture is very clear, first the Jews and then the Gentiles. But Douglas Wilson's theology would be the Jews first until the Gentiles. Even the New Testament doesn't say that.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to talk about that on Sunday and with Michael Easley. And even if you don't believe that, can you at least acknowledge that there are innocent people that have been murdered, raped, and tortured by a organization that is not only they're just not sorry about it. They're very proud of what they did. They were cheering in the streets of Gaza. And little children were murdered. There were these parents that in one of the kibbutz that I was in, they were murdered and their little babies were crying and crying and crying. And Hamas fighters were waiting outside. So when you hear a baby crying, you want to go help the baby. And they were killing people who were coming to help the babies. Like this is an evil, wicked people. This isn't actually that hard. And so what I hope we could say today is of all the rabbit holes, right? It's just a lot of micro. Pull the lens back. We can get to that. But what's right in front of us right now is a worldwide goal of Islamic principles. That's why Iran refers to the big Satan and the little Satan. And the little Satan is Israel and the big Satan is the U.S. And I know that, I think anyway, a lot of Tucker Carlson, what he says his motivations are is the war hawks and like going back to President Bush. I don't disagree with him. There was a video clip, you could probably find it to this day. All it was a guy standing outside of I think it was Senate or whatever, asking one question of congressmen or senators, do you know the difference between Sunni and Shia Islam? And exactly 0 of them did. And here's why that matters. Saddam was a Sunni president in charge of a Shia country. He had nothing to do with 9/11. And I know there's a whole conspiracy there, but the point is that was a Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, he had nothing to do with 9/11.
Yeah. So it was, in those early days even, the idea that our president thought that it was Saddam and Iraq was ludicrous. And obviously there's some of the conspiracies around Rumsfeld was that was what they wanted all along. I know that's what Tucker Carlson would say. And this was all a plan so they could run the war machine. Maybe, I don't know. Probably. But it was a huge mistake. Condoleezza Rice, right? They would go, we want to spread democracy. That was the whole plan. And so they're spreading democracy. And what did, go to Gaza. What did they do? They literally voted in Hamas by I think 90%. It was a huge percentage of we want what Hamas is selling. So they democratically elected Hamas, and then Hamas, of course, has never ceded power. Like they've been in power ever since. The same guy until he was evaporated.
So one question I have though is like the Trump administration, Biden administration, all the administrations over the past several years, they know the complexity of this. I mean, I guess it's kind of not even a rhetorical question. Like, don't they know the complexity of this? And so to offer a two-state solution when that's never going to happen.
I think that's why he's not offering a two-state solution in there. Because by now they've figured out, Netanyahu's not going to agree to that. By the way, by the boundaries of the two-state solution would, at one point in the middle of Jerusalem, I think is where it is, would put their boundaries at 8 miles of their borders.
Yeah.
It's indefensible anyway. By the way, that's what Arafat was offered and passed on. So I don't know that they do, but I think that here's what I would say: the narrative of the world, and I would say here's your conspiracy. This is demonic, right? So this week, Netanyahu speaks at the UN, and there's this giant exodus of people making this principled stand, these nation representatives, including Russia and China, talking about the genocide in Gaza. And I'm chuckling only because actually the UN themselves, fact check me on this, has not declared what is happening in Gaza as a genocide. In fact, they haven't said it's not, but they're not saying it is. They've literally had votes on this. And so it's like it's not a genocide. If the UN could think it was a genocide, if they could make the case that it was a genocide, they would have made the case that it was a genocide. So when you hear that phrase, know that even the UN, who hates Israel, has still not declared what's happening as a genocide, because it's not. The words matter. Like, just to throw that word around, it's like you hear the word narcissist applied to everything today. It's used so much that it doesn't have any meaning anymore. Genocide, by the UN standards, which I actually read, it's a broader standard than I would have even thought for a genocide. And they still can't apply that there. And here's a little fun research rabbit hole for you. Find out how many UN resolutions condemning Israel, right? Which I think is 154, give or take, for human rights violations, whatever. And then search for how many UN resolutions condemning Hamas. And the answer is 0. The organization that murders Christian bookstore owners, that murders homosexuals, murders their own people, and 0 condemnations from the UN.
Is that out of fear? I mean, where's that coming from? Like, why not?
The only thing I could say, you've heard me use this phrase, when you find paradox, that's usually where you find God. Did he choose me? Did I choose him? Yes. Right? There's a paradox. When you find madness, you find Satan. That's demonic. The fact that the UN right now, and all these, in fact, these new countries like the UK, they're now recognizing the Palestinian state. I think if I'm right, the only country left is the United States that has not recognized the Palestinian as their own state. But when you look at the actual just numbers themselves, well, a good example, al-Shara, the president of Syria, speaks at the UN. The exact same time frame as Netanyahu. Okay, al-Shara, the new president of Syria, where there's literally right now a massacre of Druze and Christians. It's heartbreaking. It's demonic. He speaks. He was literally in a terrorist organization recognized by everybody in the world except for probably Russia and China that was aligned with ISIS at one point, and then at one point they're fighting each other because I think there was a little bit of a Sunni thing. I'm not sure. I shouldn't say that, but there's something there. But his organization is responsible for tons of human rights violations. And how many people walked out when he spoke? I don't think anybody did.
That was bizarre to me.
Right.
So he walks in with a suit and a tie, gets a microphone and speaks. And everybody in that room, or most people in that room, know his violent history.
It's not
documented.
He wasn't shy about it, right? He's on videos like screaming at the camera back, 5-6 years ago. And nobody's going to walk out, but somehow they're making this principled stand that the country that literally drops leaflets, we're going to bomb this site. There are terrorist sites here. And what's happening, by the way, is Hamas is not allowing people to leave. And so they know where it's coming. So the Hamas guys get out, right? They're in their tunnels, but the innocent people are being killed, and then they put it on the news. And
essentially.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I really would love to get just 5 minutes with Tucker Carlson and ask him, if Hamas released the hostages today, what do you think would happen? And the answer is very simple. They'd be done, because Netanyahu wants to be done. He didn't want this any more than anybody else. He's in a world of trouble. He's got legal troubles coming, whatever. But this is not going to help his future at all. And presidents of Israel have a real track record of dying unexpectedly. You can usually attach that to right after they made a land for peace deal.
Interesting.
And then they die just heart attack or some random thing. Like you just go back and research that.
During his DC visit on Monday, did you see that one of the police cruisers exploded?
I did not see that.
Backseat, supposedly the backseat of a DC cop car that was driving people around, blew up, caught fire. It exploded
Mysteriously
on the day that that they're palling around the White House in DC.
Well, I guess so that's a fascinating point because
it's interesting.
The UK yesterday, a terrorist attack on a Jewish, murdering, knifing. My friend Stephen Mansfield, I don't know if you know who Stephen is, but he spends a lot of time in Iraq and in DC. And he's
in Iraq and in DC.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a baller, man.
Yeah.
Helped actually put together like Kurdish government and over where Grady is, northern Iraq. He said, if you have hopes and dreams of anything in Europe, going to Europe, you should get that done now.
I agree.
He believes in it, and this is not a schlep, by the way. He believes in the next 20 years, Europe will fall to Islam.
Yeah, I mean, that's the direction it's going.
Yeah, and so going back to, I really want us to focus on what the real problem is.
Yeah,
and that is Islam.
Yes,
and for us as believers, we have a role to play. The gospel, right? If you want to, what can I do? What can I do? Go to thecrescentproject.org and make a huge donation.
Yes.
Fuad Masri is doing incredible work training Christians on how to reach and love our Muslim neighbors. And if you've got Muslims in your neighborhood, which if you live in a upper middle class neighborhood in anywhere in the country, there are Muslims in your neighborhood because they're doctors and lawyers and they're not there to murder you. That's why I wanted to kind of differentiate it as far as they, because most Muslims like that, they would go to mosque, but you're not finding most of those guys praying 5 times a day. They're not hardcore. But when it comes to a ballot box, when it comes to an election, they would do what we would do. They would vote for the person that most aligns with their principles and their policies. And we have to be about the gospel. We cannot bomb an ideology out of people. We can only gospel it out. And if I'm right about my eschatology, and Jesus is returning maybe sooner than later, so if you're young, get married, then we could be found working, right? Like when Jesus said many false prophets will arise, deceiving many, I think the number one false prophet on the market right now is Muhammad.
Yeah.
We have to be about our Father's business.
It's interesting. I was reading through those bylaws of the Epic Center, the East Plano Islamic Center, and every time they'd mentioned Allah in their bylaws of who they follow, it would be followed up with, and I'm sure you're aware of this, they followed up, may peace be with him, or some sort of phrase like that, implying, like God rest his soul. It's like,
our beloved prophet.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well,
that would be Muhammad, or is it Muhammad they're saying that, or Allah?
I think probably Muhammad. Yeah. I mean, obviously they're acknowledging that he's dead.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, over here is the gospel of the good news of the Christ who is risen and has resurrected. So we serve a living God, right? It's a powerful living God. And I mean, the differences couldn't be more obvious in that regard.
So when we talk about even the series that we're getting ready to launch this Sunday, Equipped, it came from multiple conversations in the last year. Somebody saying that the word homosexuality wasn't in the Bible until 1946. I don't feel equipped to answer that. I just kept hearing that phrase, and realizing that in a world where we are right now, we don't have Sunday school anymore. We don't have Wednesday night service anymore.
Islam does. Apparently, they're having Sunday school.
Oh, buddy, they're having Sunday school, and they're going to mosque, and they're by the way, if you're saved by works, not by grace, you get points for going. But we've got to be a people of grace that also is a people that is as committed to understanding the actual teachings of Jesus, not the Jimmy Kimmel ones. It just takes work.
Yeah,
we've got to be committed to that. Coach Mo moment. You don't get to get on the field if you don't have your uniform on. We got to have your crap together. And as a church, I can only speak for us. I definitely, I look back, and we started talking about this in elder meetings like a few months ago. I thought we were going to launch this in January, but I'm realizing, well, literally what happened with Israel was like, oh, we got to start now, because I want to gift our people the gift of clarity and the gift of at least a lead to where here's where you can look. And if you choose not to do that, I can't make you. I can only lead you to, the horse to water. I can't make you drink. But I hope that you would at least give us the. I feel like we've earned some credibility. We passed the COVID test. We passed the Charlie Kirk test. I feel like we've earned some credibility, at least for you to listen to us. And even if you don't believe in dispensationalism or whatever, then at least let's look at this from a very practical standpoint, that there is a principle in Islam that the world is their goal. And by the way, so is ours. Go into all the nations and preach the gospel to every nation. Our Messiah could hasten the return of the Messiah is if we could, every tribe, nation, and tongue. So why are we in Asia working to reach unreached people groups? We've marked, I think, 3 tribes off the list that were previously unreached. So we can hasten the return of Christ. Shia says if we kill more people, more bloodshed, we could hasten the return.
That's a big difference.
Oh, not small. It's not a subtle difference at all. But I just want to at least give our listeners some, if you're the hunting dog, here's what I want you to hunt up this one. Anybody that knows a good hunting dog, you want them actually on the birds. You don't want them jumping around in the bush, getting caught up in the mud. And I know it's hard. It feels like because I've heard this so many times. How can I know what's true anymore? And the answer is we got to go back to what we know is true, which is the Word of God, and we start there and
zoom out.
Yeah.
That would be my advice, to zoom out. I think we're so micro zoomed in that we can't even make sense of what we're looking at.
Yeah.
So zoom out and see the big picture.
Yeah.
And especially viewed through the lens of Scripture, starting with that.
And so coming this Sunday, I'm gonna make a biblical case of why, and I want you to be like the Bereans. They said they were more noble than the rest because they heard the teachings of Paul and they searched the Scriptures to see if these things be so. By the way, the Scriptures they were searching were the Torah. So I want you to do that, but I'm going to make a case why me, and by the way, not a small number of Christians believe this, and not because, we'll talk about that later, but I don't believe it's because John Darby made it up. You can debate whether the rapture was there, but this idea of dispensationalism didn't start with John Darby. It started with Jesus, is where I would point them to. So, but I'll make a case, and you be like the Bereans, and you search the Scriptures and see if it be so. Right. We're going to have the following week. I'm going to talk a little more about probably this geopolitical thing. We're going to have Fuad Masri cover a Sunday for us on Islam. We want everyone to be equipped, but just like you, Coach Mo. You can yell, you can bark, you can blow the whistle, but at the end of the day, they got to get in the game. They got to do the work. So I'm begging you, if you're a follower of Christ, do the work. Get out of TikTok and get in the Word.
So true. Thank you. Thanks for bringing the passion around this topic.
Did I feel grumpy? I was trying to practice on the way in. I want to be like Josh Howerton, he could communicate the worst news with a smile on his face. But I feel like John MacArthur, if that theological ball comes over the fence one more time, it's mine.
This is good. This is good for all of us. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending time here at the Deeper Podcast. Maybe you just stumbled upon this. Would you go ahead and subscribe if you enjoyed and maybe learned something today? Maybe you live here in the Franklin or Nashville area. You want to come visit. Come check us out, ConduitChurch.com, meeting every Sunday, 4 different services. You can find the information there. If you want to know more about what we're doing across the globe, conduitmission.org. See you soon.